Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Welcome back to All Things Faith, Love and Purpose, and welcome to another episode of Candid Conversations. Now, as you can see by the title, today we'll be talking about sex, a topic that is quite taboo, and I had to dig a little bit to see if I should really have this conversation on my channel or not, because it's a conversation that we like to shy away from, especially as Christians, and when we do talk about it, we kind of, tiptoe around it. And I'll be joined by Masego Maluleka, who was brave enough to write a book about her own sexual encounters. So I think it's a very important conversation for us to have as young people, and I hope that you'll enjoy it. Now, without wasting any more time, let's get right into the conversation. So yeah guys, as I mentioned, I am joined by Masego. Masego, before we get into the conversation, introduce yourself a bit.
Thank you for having me. It's such a privilege and an honor to be here with you. I'm Masego, and I'm an author, I'm a speaker, living a life full of purpose.
You love traveling as well.
I love
She's a travel enthusiast. Yes.
That too.
As we mentioned, you guys, today we'll be talking about sex. And as I mentioned in the intro, it's a bit of a taboo conversation. We hardly, really talk about it.
True.
And we advocate for celibacy. So we'll be taking you through our own journey, our own experiences.
Share tips, share advice.
Because it's not easy, and
Yes,
we're
true.
going to be real about it instead of just bombarding you with stuff, but really our own journey and experience. Going into that, would you like to take us through why you decided to be celibate, how you came about to actually
getting
pursue
into
that.
pursuing celibacy. Sure. Definitely. So with me, my journey started right after I had a very traumatic experience in a relationship, right? And so through that experience, I kind of felt like I was a serial dater. Okay, I had a lot of dating experience, and at the same time, it seemed as though I was kind of having the same experience, but with different
people,
bodies,
Sure.
And I just somewhat got to a point whereby I had to sit down and think to myself, Hormara, what is it that I can do different? What is it that I can, or how is it that I can approach things differently? And I remember at that time deciding to be celibate. I was not really as deeply rooted in Christ.
Yeah.
In fact, I think my celibacy on its own, it drew me closer to God
Sure.
than ever.
Wow.
Wherein a lot of people would obviously go to church, get this revelation in church. With me,
It
it
was
was that
opposite.
thing, I know God, I know Jesus, but then it really
Didn't have that
yeah.
intimate relationship
Yes.
with him.
So it became more intimate when I actually also drew
Sure.
rather closer to God, and then I then decided, you know what, I'm gonna stop a bit with this dating thing. I really wanna see dating for how God sees it. I wanna see relationships for how God sees them, and that's when I put myself on a challenge to say, okay, fine, how about you try it differently? How about you get into a relationship and not even introduce sex as the first thing in the relationship, but get to really know a person outside from sex, And that's how the journey for me started.
Sure, and then is that around the time that you had that hashtag Ganaging closed?
Yes,
Ganaging closed. What was the hashtag?
Sorry, we were closed
Sorry,
until
we were closed
marriage.
until
Yeah,
marriage. Is that
that was like over a year later since I was celibate, and I saw this post on Facebook. This lady was sharing on celibacy and her journey, and she gave a very powerful testimony, and I was like, Lord, I know you're introducing me to my tribe, so I'm gonna jump on, And obviously it takes a whole lot of courage to share your story, to be really transparent,
especially in this day and age.
Truly, it is. I mean, you get a whole lot of judgment. You get people assuming, "Hore, you're doing this because you've got some hidden agendas." You get people thinking, "Hore, you're doing this because of you just needed, you want attention, But I just jumped on the challenge, and I joined in, and I shared my story, and it really inspired the masses. It inspired a whole lot of people.
It was trendy.
And then that's how the journey really started.
Sure.
I don't know. And how about you on your side?
On my side, well, I think I've mentioned this on my channel quite a few times, but I did not come from a Christian home, so I was never exposed to God and all of that. Growing up, I would date, yes, but I never really had sex. It was that thing I would like for me. Like I don't know, personally, Jane was that thing I would. I'm saving myself for marriage. Even before, I think we had the same experience. Even before we got saved, it was never on the cards for me. True. Dating was just, like I mentioned in our previous video when we were talking about daddy issues, to fill the void that I had. So that was never a thing for me until I got a revelation of Christ, like when I got saved, and then I started taking it more seriously, and I started to see, you know what, I want to date God's way, considering my past, considering, you know, being a serial dater as well. But it was also difficult because you find that you meet people whereby they say they are Christian guys.
And then when it comes to the big stories,
it's like, listen, you believe in everything, but when it comes to sex, like there's no compromise,
you know,
with that. So it was very difficult for me.
I can imagine.
To date during that time, because you find that you meet someone that you like and you're thinking, oh my gosh, it's a Christian guy, this is God's best
Lord,
for me.
this is you.
But only to find that the guy is just like, you know what, when it comes to sex, so it was very difficult, and that's when I think I started to like introspect and put my self-worth like as the standard, in a sense that I wouldn't settle for less than God's best. So it was difficult, but you know what, we move
by God's grace. We really move.
So but then how was your experience, like in terms like when time came for you to start dating again, and you telling the person that you're in a relationship, or like sex is
it's not
on the cards.
It's not on the cards. So with me, I with the moment I decided to pursue sexual purity, it was engraved in my heart to an extent whereby I was honestly not willing to compromise anything, and it was because of in the journey, as I was embarking in the journey, obviously I started to draw closer more like to God, as I mentioned, you know, and then in that I got revelations of why it is that he really wants to preserve sex for marriage, and why is it that sexual purity actually honors him, and why is it that it is his will for our sanctification to abstain from sex. The minute I received all those revelations, I was honestly not willing to lose that for a moment of instant gratification. And I was at a point of no compromise. It's like either this or nothing. So obviously I got into a relationship. It was the first thing that I would bring to the table. A whole lot of us struggle with being honest about this from the very beginning. We want to wait until everything leaves to the bedroom, and then we're like,
in the moment, that's when you want to tell a person,
you know, which I don't think it's fair.
It's
because
not,
firstly, you're not giving a person a chance to really express themselves, how they feel about your decision to be celibate, and also you're also not giving them that freedom to decide, okay, can you go continue the relationship, yes or not, you know. So I became very honest and transparent from the beginning of a relationship, that listen, this is what I believe in, this is what I stand for, you know. And I can just, if I could just share one of my experiences, one of the first guys that I met after I had made that decision, and I remember it was in my first year, or near the end of my first year of varsity, and I met this guy, and we really clicked, you know. He really clicked very well. And then came the, you know, hot stuff, whereby now we obviously get to know one another, and I'm just like, hey, there's something I want to tell you, you know. I get that we're getting along, I get that, you know, this boat is moving, but I also wanted to bring it to your attention that this is what I believe in. I believe in celibacy, I believe in abstinence, and I in no way intend on dating you and involving any sexual activities. And he was like, oh, that never happens. It was like someone just said something Azanga before, you know. It was so new, it was new to his ears, and he couldn't even believe that at my age I wanted to pursue such a thing. And he said to me, oh, okay, that's not a problem, but another exception, and okay, bring it to the table. And he's like, is it okay if I go out and I'm just what is the purpose, you know?
Wait, what's the point?
Yes, what's the point?
Missing the point.
At that moment, like I had mentioned, how because of this particular journey drew me so closer to God, I was very clear in knowing what God really wants for me. And in one of my prayers, as I was praying, God personally revealed it to me that, listen, your partner, your spouse will not only be willing to wait with you, for you, but he will also wait with you, you know. And the moment he showed an element of waiting for me but not with me, I knew that, Lord, I know this is your sign that he cannot be the one for me. So I then said, no, okay, if you don't call, then no. I think it would be best for you to just go on, live your journey, and then also live my journey with my beliefs, you know. And that's how it's placed. So I went. I was really I really got to a point where I was okay with losing people. I was okay with losing what people might regard as relationship goals, couple goals. You see those couple goals?
But they are not.
I was okay with losing that for the sake of my sanity, for the sake of my purity, because I knew that really what God has promised is far greater than that instant moment of gratification. You know,
that's good. Sure. Wow, that is actually quite deep, especially when it comes to dating. Like for me, like I was always the person whereby if I get into a relationship, like I was always the one to say, hey, by the way, you know, sex is not on the cards and whatnot. I think for the first time in my life, when a male actually initiated the whole thing was when I met my husband. So it goes back to someone who will wait not only for you but with you. And when I met my husband, I think one of the ways that I want, like I told God, I will know for like this guy is for me is if, and I will initiate that conversation of saying like sex is not on the cards for us. And for me it was like, oh my god, that's a big deal, because like all this,
because you spend all these years explaining yourself to people.
Exactly.
Some of them, like they think and to others you just look like you're really being dramatic. So the moment I can also testify that with my husband, so it was the same thing as well, because he actually got to know me through a video that I shared on sexual purity. And he kept telling me that before he could actually start dating and getting into this pursuing marriage, he said that he did point at me on the video, this is my wife. And it was because of he saw me pursuing one thing along, it's very close to my heart, one thing along, God told me that you're not gonna be at a point of compromise when you do this. So it's it really is, you know. So once you get the one person along, like
you don't always have to explain yourself.
You know, it's like
you don't have to worry once you say this, now everything
comes
crumbling, whatever,
crumbles. It's so good. It feels so good, and it also really gives that sense of peace and a surety of thinking I'm living God's way, and I know that in my relationship I'm not compromising. I'm honoring God how He wants me to, and I'm doing really what feels right, you know.
That's good.
So that's
and then,
how the experience has been.
And then when it comes to like, cause I mean, like I said, especially as young people and as Christians as well, sometimes, you know, you find people who are, like I said, now with my experience, the guys that I was dating, they were Christian, and, you know, like, but when it came to sex, they were like, guys, it's not possible. And I've heard a lot of that, especially with me and the people that will be in my circles. They would say, like, it's impossible for you to save yourself for marriage.
I was even told, like, when like sex before marriage, when
who are you to try and do that?
And I was like, listen, this is one of the reasons why I'm pursuing it, so that I don't go through
you can break that generational thing
that my forefathers went through, you know. It may not benefit me, but definitely the generation coming after me will have the grace of sexual purity. The generation coming after me will not go through the same sexual strongholds that were running around in my family, you know. And I think that's where now the perspective begins to change, whereby I'm doing it for me, but I'm doing it for the generation coming after me, you know, for the generation coming after me, so that they don't go through what I went through. You know, I may be a product of sexual immorality and fornication, but definitely my seeds will be a product of sexual purity, a product of celibacy, you know. Beautiful. So it really goes a long way. I mean, you get judged a lot, you get criticized, and some things some
you're
people
told
think
you're holier than thou.
You think you know. But it sometimes really puzzles me at how it's okay for us to talk about the different, for our society and most people to talk openly about the different sex positions they like, but when we talk about how celibate we are,
then it's a problem.
Then
I think that is why I found it important for me, like, to have this conversation for this series, because I battled a lot. Should I do it or should I not? You know, what will people say? Is people I might lose subscribers because I'm advocating for celibacy and whatnot. So, but I felt it impressed in my heart that, you know, it's a very important conversation to have. And I mean, the world is so comfortable talking about, you know, things that they like, things that they're pursuing. Why are we as Christians shying away
from sexual purity? Why are we shying away from the very thing it is it honors God, you know. Why do we have to now lower our tone when we have to start talking about issues of sexual purity, you know? And also at schools, like, why are schools so open to talking about birth controls and different kind of options that are there to avoid teenage pregnancy, but never have they really emphasized on abstinence and sexual purity, like, you know? So it has always been a problem to me. Now section we are divided, you know, we are fighting what is bigger, you know, because now it's like society already has got this concept that, oh no, this is the way to life. Let's just have casual sex, let's just use protection, let's just, you know, and then whereas whole when with a different concept, you just see as though, and then where do you come from? You know? With this concept, and that's where most of the attacks come. I mean, I can attest to the fact that most of the attacks I didn't get while I made the decision of being celibate, but after then, you know, that's when now I got approached by a whole lot of men, like, that came from different angles, like different
all over
different angles of life and different walks of life rather, and they would just come and ask me out and whatever. But because of that time, I had already received the conviction from the Holy Spirit, and I already received the revelation. My discernment spirit was so active to a point whereby I would see the devil, I know you're trying something, but I'm not about to fall for your tricks, you know. And I would be so open about this to a point whereby I was not willing to either take negativity to anyone or listen to anyone that would try to debate me out of my decision.
So, and I think that's why it's very important for, like, when you pursue celibacy, you're not just doing it because the church says sex before marriage is a sin, but because you really have a revelation as to why it is God's way, you know, of dating and why it should be done in the container of marriage. So once you have that revelation, I think it's very easy for you to stand your ground, because if you're doing something just because someone else said it, it's very easy for you to lose your way. It's very easy for you to, you know, fall into temptation. Because you don't have, like, the true revelation as to why we are.
In fact, that revelation is your why.
It is.
You know, it keeps you going, because you know, okay, fine, I'm doing this for this particular reason. And that's why I constantly emphasize sexual purity, or rather celibacy, should be acknowledged first as a personal decision before it is known as a godly principle. Why? So that you can know what it means to you, you know. About your sexuality, you know what it means to you, to a point whereby even if you hear it from the church, or even if you don't hear it from the church or from the pastor, you'll definitely go for it, because you know, this is a personal revelation that I've received, and I'm going with it, you know.
That's nice. And then going into the reality of you know, saving yourself for marriage. Obviously, now I mentioned, now I've had those people who tell me, like, it's impossible, like, you'll never find a person they advocate for celibacy or whatever. So what are the practical ways, like, especially to the viewers or a person who's listening right now and they're saying, I've tried to pursue celibacy, but it's not easy, fall into temptation, what are the practical ways that you can encourage a person to do it? Like, for example, now with my husband and I, when we first got together, we told ourselves we're saving ourselves for marriage, but we didn't communicate as to how are we practically going to do
how was
this.
the journey
Without just being spiritual about it. We, like, for example, we told ourselves, okay, we're not going to kiss like Lamza to put it like that, like, we're not going to Lamza, because obviously what's a better way to put it? We're
not gonna do the French
kissing, because obviously that could lead to something else. So that's a practical way that we decided to, like, okay, this is the boundary that we're going to set. Like, for example, like, avoid being alone as well too much,
because private spaces,
because obviously that's one of the ways that you can easily get
fall off the gutter easily. So I mean, most people that would come to me, I get a whole lot of people. I think maybe it's because of the book that I've written and the story that I've shared that come to me with real life challenges, you know, in their relationships. And for like over 5 to 8 years, and now suddenly you feel how do I do that when we've introduced sex as the first thing, and a person I really want to do this, I really want to pursue sexual purity, but I keep getting tempted, you know, I keep falling off the gutter. And if anyone would ask me today, have I fallen? Yes, I have, but not too deep for grace not to pick me up.
You know? That's good. That's the most important thing.
I've fallen, but not so deep where grace could not even find me and pick me up and say, no, we journey on. And what I realized also is that in as much as you and your husband did decide, okay, fine, listen, we're going to pursue sexual purity, we're going to abstain until we get married. That's the first step. Now comes the real world whereby now, and can we also emphasize the fact that sexual purity and celibacy is work. It is real work, and that the real work starts.
It's not just the roses, it's the thorns underneath those petals.
Under those roses. And one of the ways I can also really relate to is setting clear boundaries between you and your partner. If it means that you guys have to just eliminate meeting in private spaces, or eliminate doing the kind of things, there are certain things you just know. No one even has to tell you.
Even if for some people,
and I feel like that conscious does tell us, this is too far, you know, and how far
is too far? I was about to ask, like, it brings us to that thing, or like, how far is too far? Because now I've met people who say we're saving ourselves for marriage, you know, as long as there's no penetration, like, it's okay. Like, but if it's on first base, second base, third base,
oh my God,
that's like kissing and touching. But like, there's people who say as long as the deed did not actually happen,
then far is not that far.
And for me, I don't believe in that personally.
Honestly, I also do not believe
it's
in
not
that,
just in the act itself, but even the way you carry
yourself, the
well,
way you speak, the kind of conversations that you have. I mean, I remember there was a time I used to, like, I get to neglect paranoid, but there was a time I told my husband that I did sweetie. Just call me by my name, you know, because I just feel like, you know, this name calling thing, it's honestly going to lead to something that's not nice, you know. And maybe I was really being dramatic at that time, but it's about, like, really trying to set the kind of boundaries that will not
and do what
lead
works
you
for
into
you.
temptation. And also doing that's very much important. And that's what I wanted to mention. Do what really works for you.
What worked for my husband and I
may not work for any other couple. And it's important to also, as a couple, know yourself. How far can we get? You know, and is it how important it is for us to set such boundaries? I mean, if we're okay in being in private spaces and you're saying, okay, fine, we're just gonna sit in the dining room and then watch a movie and then no bedroom entry, or we're just gonna kiss like just those, you know, baby kisses and not even, you know, it's all about setting those boundaries and agreeing. Agreement is very much important, because
being on the same page.
Once you guys are in agreement about it, you then become accountability partners. You know, when either one of you, or maybe one goes,
you can call him out and say,
hey, listen, this is not what we agreed on, you know, this is not what we said we're gonna do, you know. So it also brings a sense of accountability between both of you as partners. I know some couples would rather have a third party or a mediator, whereby they only meet on the consent of that third party. They only go to places together when there's the third person, you know. Whatever works for you. Honestly, there is no manual, there's no scripture in the Word of God that tells us exactly how to pursue sexual purity, but it does emphasize that it is the will of God for our lives to abstain from sexual immorality. And there aren't really practical steps, hence it's important for you to know what are your boundaries and then set them, be clear about them, don't compromise. I mean, there was this other love talk show Nikki attended about years ago, And then Kabelo Mabelane, you know, he gave a testimony. Hori and Ali, his wife Gail, they waited for marriage before they could have sex, and he Nawulela about how boundaries are more like having a lighter, a lighter, and then you switch it on, and then you expect it not to burn. The more you keep it on, the more it will burn you, and then the more it will then end up, leading you into doing what you said you didn't want to do from the onset. So be clear about what you want and agree with your partner upon that, And if your partner as a I wouldn't say he's not the one, but
it makes sense really that you both are on the same page and in agreement as to like, why are you guys pursuing sexual purity?
Why are you pursuing sexual purity, and I think with you, I wanted to know this, right? Now that we are on the other side of the journey, and I like that we still are in pursuit of sexual purity, because what I realized is that even after marriage, sexual purity
I was about
is
to
still
make
a thing.
that point, but it's not
It's
just
still a thing, it's not just before. There's a whole lot that happens even after that. And what I always say is that if you are okay with being a fornicator, then when you get married, don't think things are just gonna change. You're gonna graduate to an adulterer. So it's safer to just be sexually pure before you even, so that when you get into the marriage covenant, you've already been trained in the skill of self-control.
And marriage actually highlights those issues even more.
It does. It edifies whatever it is that you have been feeding yourself before then. So I wanted to know for you, since now that obviously you're in the marriage, right? How do you maintain that sexual purity with your partner?
How do I maintain? Now for me personally, when it comes to like the marriage bed, I think it's something that I honor very much. Like it's something along where you have to really respect. So I think for me and my husband, I think one thing I told myself is that we're not going to make our sex life boring.
Okay.
No, don't put it like that. But
okay, it honors God, it honors
making
God.
me feel awkward, don't blush, but like I think one thing I told myself, like, just because we're Christians does not mean we are not going to explore, we're not going to enjoy our sex life. And I think it's those things that sometimes, like we mentioned purity in marriage, sometimes the lack of that can lead to a person like doing things that what's the opposite of purity?
Impurity, that are
impure to like the marriage bed, for example,
that might defile the marriage bed.
Seeking certain things maybe from other people and whatnot. So for me, infidelity, even if it's not the act itself, but emotional, there's like emotional cheating as well. It's a thing, So for me, it's something that I honor very much. I respect it very much, and I plan for it to be very fun for the rest of our lives. I don't know about you.
Well, for me, I think I've gotten to see actually how that season of celibacy was so necessary after when I crossed the border, and I got to understand it was so that it can train me and my husband at the same time as well to actually just see one another the way God sees us, and how to continuously be intentional about keeping the marriage bed clean but not boring.
Yes, child.
Clean but not boring.
Clean but not boring.
And by obviously, like once you get into that season of celibacy, it trains you in the things along you're gonna need when you get into marriage. Things like promiscuity and infidelity. You unlearn those things. Things that society has normalized. Like once and then and sleep outside. Then you begin to understand it's actually possible to pursue purity even in the marriage covenant. In fact, it what honors God. You know?
And it instills discipline
It
in
does,
you as
a
well.
whole
The
lot
fact
of
that
discipline.
you're able to wait, it shows that in other aspects,
Yes.
it's especially in marriage as well, it reinforces that discipline,
It does.
patience and whatnot, which will in turn like
Be rewarding.
be
I
rewarding.
believe.
So, given now that you're married, né, like the first question is your experience of sex different now that you're married as opposed to before? Like, for example, now I've always wondered, Hore, is there a difference in a sense of Hore? Like, now for me, I think personally, I have experienced that thing. Her husband is cheering, guys.
Oh my
in the
goodness.
background. So, now for me, for example, now with me, like, my wedding night was, like, in a sense, very special. Like, I can't even explain it, but it's different, man. It hits different, like, when you marry. I don't know if that makes sense, but I don't know. It's even way more beautiful because it's like it's worship to God. Like sex is it's worship, you know.
God, yeah.
And I don't know if you, I don't know, maybe can Nafela experience that, but
No,
like
you're not the
for
only
me, I
one.
felt like
You're not
wow,
the only one. It
worth
feels
the
like
wait.
a heaven that was definitely worth waiting for.
Yeah.
You know, can I be honest with you that, and I'm not really trying to maybe glorify celibacy, but it kind of like clears your memory of whatever it is that you experience.
Yes, you like it's, you
And
can't even compare.
I cannot. I'd be lying if I said I can remember how anyone else. How my any other experience has been like, because I somewhat don't remember.
Yeah,
you know.
and it's a beautiful experience.
The fear that a whole lot of people would have, or the question that a whole lot of people would
Will
have,
it, yeah,
will it be nice when we get there?
Because I mean, you're going
you know,
into this thing,
this
you don't
thing,
know how this person does. You have your own experience.
Yes.
You have to unlearn. You have to relearn. And then I think that was my biggest thing. Or like will it
or will it not
be?
You
like,
know? Yeah, and a lot of people, well, I think it's in a way low-key excuse, because a lot of people like using that as
what
a
if the sex
benchmark.
is bad?
Yeah, what if the sex is bad? Then what? And then I'm already married to this person. And but you can still, if your person's
it's
not
not the end of the world.
teach them and tell them, Hori, you know,
we all learn. We learn together. We have forever to figure it out.
I feel like sexual purity, what it does is that it is a testament of the book of Romans, where it says, when we do not conform to the patterns of the world, we become transformed by the renewal of our minds. So purity renews the mind.
It renews you.
It renews the mind. You don't remember any, because come to think of it, before it was done, when it was done out of the marriage covenant, it was immorality. It did not honor God. It came with a whole lot of guilt, came with a lot of shame, a lot of heartbreak, a whole lot of, I shouldn't have done that, you know. But now it's different. You're on the other side. You're doing it. You're knowing that you worship God. You're honoring God. It's for pleasure. It's for procreation. It like everything about it feels right.
Beautiful.
You understand what I mean? So it's that thing. Like once you when you're in that journey and then you begin now to get into the marriage covenant, you don't even have like a trace or a benchmark to your spouse, because this is what God, you have blessed me with, and I believe that you know my sexual needs. Come on, sexuality, your sexuality belongs to Jesus.
Yes.
You know?
Oh my gosh, that's so good.
You know my sexual needs. Oh Lord, how much more would you then partner me with someone that is not able to satisfy those needs? You know?
Wow.
And then you begin to embrace your partner for who they are. Then you begin to see actually sex as worship, like you say.
Yeah, sure. Wow. That's deep. And then closing off this conversation, because it's very deep and
too deep and steamy and
all those things.
Yeah.
What would you say to young people watching this video? Like, what advice would you give them when it comes to sex, considering your own situation?
Yeah.
Like, put it together as advice to yourself, younger self, and younger people, or people our age who are watching this and also want to pursue that.
Well, for me, I'd say first, if you're a virgin, please continue to save yourself. I know you get it often, Hore, when are you going to lose your virginity? It's time to explore. It's time to start having sex. It's time now to start being involved in, you know, sexual activities. But trust me, it's not necessary. And I always say that some of the experiences you don't have to learn lessons from your own personal experiences. If there's time for people to make mistakes, there's also time for you to learn from them.
Sure.
You don't have to go through what we went through.
Yeah.
I'm not really proud to say I was sexually active from a
Yeah,
young age. It's not a proud thing to say, you know. And
it's not a thing to be proud of.
Yeah, it's not a thing to be proud of. So if you have been or are still a virgin, keep it at that. Continue to pray for God to give you an understanding and a personal revelation of what sexual purity is, because that revelation is going to be your why. That revelation is going to be what keeps you going. That revelation is going to be the reason why nobody can debate you out of your decision.
That's
you
good.
know. So yeah, that's what I would advise them. If you've already into you've already had that experience of being sexually active and now you wanna be celibate, because there are a lot of people that are in fact crying. You know, people really need help. People need a saving grace from this stronghold of sexual immorality. And if you add that, I would really encourage you to be more intentional about that decision and also involve yourself. There's nothing as lonely as going on a celibate journey alone. Read from people that have went through the journey. Associate yourself with a group of like-minded people that will not make you feel like you're crazy for thinking that sex should be preserved for marriage, but people that really advocate for sexual purity.
That's
you know.
good.
So yeah, that's my advice. And on
Sure.
your side?
On my side, I would say that your past does not define you, and you like there's enough grace. There's a lot of people, I'm sure, who like have fallen short, for example, in this walk, because it's not easy. But God can still use you. He's using us, and we have not been perfect. And I also want to read this verse. But the key thing is, don't beat yourself up over based on your past. So it's Ecclesiastes 11 verse 9. It says, "Young people, it is wonderful to be young. Enjoy every minute of it. Do everything that you want to do. Take it all in, but remember that you must give an account to God for everything that you do." And I think that just wraps it up. Us pursuing celibacy, it does not mean we are not living our lives. It does not mean our lives are boring. In fact, for me personally, it revealed just like the beauty of intimacy, and to also have my own personal encounter with Christ, apart from, you know, the whole standards of the world thing. So I would say, live your life the best way that you can. You can pursue purity while you're still doing that, but remember that you will give an account to God for every action. So don't get lost in the hype, don't get lost in the moment or peer pressure or whatever it is. But yes, I think that wraps up the conversation. If you watched this far, thank you so much for watching, and we hope that you enjoyed this video, and thank you so much for joining
Thanks to you.
us on the video. Obviously, as you already know, Good Craft Gifts is sponsoring the gifts for every guest. So here's a gift for you.
Thank you
so
Conrad,
much.
to advance. Yes. While we're on that gifting note, I'm also going to give one of your subsidies this book. So I don't know what challenge you're going to do, but
I'll think about it.
Giveaway in which you can have a kind of like a giveaway to one of your subscribers, especially maybe someone will have to write a comment or share something in their comments upon this particular topic.
Think about it.
And then you can give them this book of mine.
That's
exciting. And then hopefully they will also get to learn a lot from this book, whether they're celibate, whether they want to be celibate, whether they're in the journey, they fell off the gutter and want to get back. This is the book for you. So
you have to get
good
this
luck.
Book. And I love the title, Under the Sheets.
Yeah, Under the Sheets.
So yeah, guys, I'll think as to how we will do this giveaway, but one of you will win this amazing book. And for those who, obviously it's for 1%, so for those who won't win, how can they get hold of you? How can they get the book? You know, social media.
Okay, so like if you are interested in getting the book for yourself, if you don't win, you can always reach out to me on my social media pages. On Instagram, it's Masego Maluleka. On Twitter, it's Masego Maluleka, and on Facebook as well, it's Masego Maluleka as well.
But the surname,
but the surname has changed
very soon.
But yeah,
guys,
you can still reach me on those on those platforms. You can ask me about the book. Ask me about anything that's celibacy or sexual purity related. We can really have conversations. And they'll give you details. Walk the journey with you as well. Because like we said, that it may be lonely if you walk it alone, but if you've got sisters and brothers or a circle of people rather that encourage you, then you're likely to conquer and succeed. So
thank you so much for joining me. This was a very nice conversation. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope that you appreciated our honesty, our rawness, and that you will share it with people in your circle, especially young people. I think it's a very necessary conversation. But thank you so much for joining us, guys. I'll see you in my next video.
Thank you. Don't forget to like.
Oh yes, don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, do the things and share it with everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.